So this lad loses a pint of blood and you guys have nothing to say for yourselves.
It was nice. I've just been starting to crack all year.
Who threw the first punch, Michael? You go. Did Michael throw the first punch? Answer me, yes or no?
Yeah, Michael threw the first punch, but it wasn't his fault. Alright, we just had a few too many beers, that's all.
I didn't hear that. I did not hear that, you understand? You have disgraced our team. You know the rules. You can attend practice. That's a privilege that I give you. But you will not play in at least 2 games. Then we will see. You know what this is going to cost us? This young man sitting here called you up to share the most valuable player award. And you just shit all over it. And you know you're lucky that this didn't happen on campus. Because you're overprivileged ass.
I know, sir.
Get out of here. Get out of here, all of you.
A modern day remake of Matthew Vaughn's Lay a Kick. A Coen brothers end up with Timothy Chalamet.
A Citizen Kane prequel, a Midnight Cowboy sequel. Alvin and the Chipmunks deserve another squeak.
There's so many new ways to revisit sideways, but a graphic novel is how we choose to update.
But we still hold fast, you can't change the past on the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Launched in April 2000, O Magazine expanded the media empire of living legend Oprah Winfrey, capitalizing on her career as an original lifestyle influencer. As O's circulation grew, so did its influence, bringing Oprah's gift suggestions, interviews, and book recommendations into the homes of over 2 million subscribers during the peak of its print run. One of the unique features of O was the appearance of Oprah on the cover of every issue by herself, with the exceptions of Michelle Obama and Ellen DeGeneres, who each joined Ms. Winfrey for different issues in 2009. The one issue not to feature Oprah at all on the cover was in September 2020, when a photo of Breonna Taylor was given that particular distinction. Honoring Breonna, an innocent black woman who was murdered by police in her Kentucky home, is not out of character for Oprah, who has championed black voices her entire career. Aside from her eponymous daytime talk show, Oprah has produced dozens of TV shows and movies celebrating the black experience. The list of films produced by Oprah contains 2014's Selma, based on the Alabama Civil Rights March orchestrated by Dr. King, 2009's Precious, based on the novel Push by Sapphire, and 2007's The Great Debaters, based on the story of a debate team in Texas led by Melvin Tolson. The Great Debaters won 4 NAACP Image Awards, a Producers Guild Award, and a National Board of Review Freedom of Expression Award. It stars Denzel Washington, Forrest Whitaker, Denzel Whitaker, Journey Smollett, a then unknown Glenn Powell, and film veteran John Hurd. Hurd is likely best known as Peter McAllister, father of Kevin, Jeff, Linny, and Buzz in the movie Home Alone. You may also remember Hurd as Tom Hanks' adult rival in the 1988 film Big. And we can't forget his role as George Cooper in the 1984 film Chud. But this film actor has a few other hits under his belt, and I'm not referring to his arrest for assaulting then-girlfriend Melissa Leo. John Hurd was also a lauded stage actor, appearing in many New York productions, notably in roles penned by William Shakespeare. In 1975, he performed at the Vivian Beaumont Theater as Guildenstern in Hamlet, also serving as understudy for the title role. And in 1977, John Hurd would play the role of Cassio in a Delacorte Theater production of Othello, which won Hurd an Obie Award, celebrating off-Broadway theater's finest. But this wasn't the last time Hurd would involve himself with Shakespeare's 1603 tragedy. Greetings, Starfighters, this is Ruined Childhoods, and on this episode we celebrate the 2001 Othello high school adaptation O, which is not to be confused with the Coldplay song O, Cirque du Soleil show O, or the magazine featuring Oprah Winfrey. Dan, you have a background in theater and you're a high school English teacher. What is your experience like with William Shakespeare?
My experience with William Shakespeare is, really positive. I'm trying to stay focused here because when, in talking about Shakespeare, and I feel like I had always had an appreciation for Shakespeare,
Mm-hmm.
and performed in a few different Shakespeare
Oh,
plays.
did you really?
Yes, I have been in a Midsummer Night's Dream,
Cool.
The Merchant of Venice, and Twelfth Night. I'm trying to remember. I think those are the only ones that I've been in,
Okay.
but have studied Shakespeare. I teach Romeo and Juliet as
Right.
part of my curriculum, and I think my work with Romeo and Juliet, it has really given me new appreciation for Shakespeare. And as I and it's one of those plays that, and I don't know if we'll ever talk about it on here. Uh, I mean, there's so many different versions and slight
Right.
variations, some which are merited to be called a Romeo and Juliet adaptation. I know, we'll be talking about Julia Stiles today, and
We
Julia
sure will.
Stiles, one of her biggest hits was Save the Last Dance, which is often listed as
Oh,
a modern day Romeo and
I,
Juliet,
s-
but
I never considered that.
it really, when you watch it, it's like, well, yeah, there's a forbidden, there's like a forbidden romance angle. I mean, the romance is similar to that in
Sure. Yeah.
but it's yeah, so it's basically an interracial like couple, and she's and like that's what it is, but it's like the similarities end there. And actually, interestingly, since you brought this up now, it's as good a time as any to talk a little bit about it. And I thought about this a lot watching
Okay.
how Shakespeare, when you think about representation of,
Mm-hmm.
especially between men and women, and what are typical female roles, and I think we think about Romeo and Juliet, and we think of Juliet as like, they're the star-crossed lovers.
Yeah.
When you really, like look at what it is, though, and you really read it, and you really take kind of all of the aspects into consideration of it, that's not at all what she's about.
Okay.
She's a young, she's an independent woman
Sure. Yeah.
who's been, pretty much emotionally at least neglected by her parents, was
Yeah.
pretty much raised by the character of the nurse,
True. Yeah.
who is a body and like strong-willed, and like, yes, these are still women kind of trapped in their roles, which is why Juliet is basically a pawn of her parents
Right.
to gain. And Shakespeare, throughout Shakespeare, power, status, all of that plays a huge role. So we'll be talking about that again. But in Romeo and Juliet, you have these two families that are like, neither is royalty or nobility. It's like the two biggest merchants in town.
Yeah.
It's Coke and Pepsi. It's the McDonald's, Burger King, whatever you want to
It's
compare it to.
PC Richards and Nobody Beats the Wiz,
Wow.
regionally speaking.
Regionally speaking, yeah. Wow. PC Richards and Nobody Beats the Wiz. Amazing. But in so between Montague and Capulet, it's like they're really kind of like neck and neck. And for Capulet, Juliet's father, if Juliet marries this Count Paris, who Paul Rudd in the
I
Baz
was going to
Luhrmann.
say, was that
Yep.
Paul Rudd in the Romeo plus Juliet?
Yep, and which I love how he plays it, and that he's so goofy. But Juliet is 13 years old. She's
Right.
close to her 14th birthday, but it's very specific. Like it like I think she's 2 weeks away from her
Right.
14th birthday.
Which in an era when you max out at like 50, maybe
Well,
60
right.
if you're lucky.
Well, and that was the thing, although for women, was as soon as they could bear children,
Right.
they were potential wives. And for Capulet, it's, Juliet realizes this, and
Right.
she's kind of their pawn, because if she marries Paris, she's kind of marrying into that nobility, which gives her family that edge.
Yeah.
So, but go ahead.
Oh, well,
I was going to get to the point.
You can go ahead and get to your point, and then I want to come back around to something that hasn't come up that I feel like it's shocking that it hasn't come up. But go on.
Okay, so in Shakespeare, and it's not just in Romeo and Juliet, it is in Othello, and definitely emphasizes this. Merchant of Venice especially, but really it's like when you look through Shakespeare's plays, you see the trend that Shakespeare's male characters are consistently irrational, over emotional, reactionary, immature.
Yes.
Fly off the handle of anything. Romeo is Romeo is one of the worst. And the women are in control. And they are always in, even you think about Lady Macbeth, and I know it's like, yeah, she's not necessarily viewed as a hero, but when you look at her as a woman who, like, the only way she can have any power is through her husband, so if she can control him, she essentially has his power. Even then, it's the women are smarter and more balanced, and I mean, like Portia's Portia's big monologue at the end of Merchant of Venice, where she, makes the case for Shylock, and it's very logical. And I love that Shakespeare kind of has that when it's, when you look at a lot of classic literature, and I think a lot of people make the generalization that it's like, oh, well, no, all the men are this and that, and like they're strong and they're powerful and the women are just subservient. In Shakespeare, they are subservient to the point that they have to be because of the rules of society, but they consistently, I mean, throughout comedy, tragedy, histories, are the ones who are, like I said, more like rational and not emotional, not reacting emotionally to things, and logical. And it makes it so much. So to me, Shakespeare is or was incredibly forward thinking, and I don't know, maybe that's just kind of like what I need to
sure.
Like maybe I'm seeing in it what I need to see in it to make it interesting to modern teenagers. Like maybe I'm wrong, but
I mean, it's your job, to find those things to connect with your students.
I tell them about Romeo and Juliet. I'll give you my tagline for it when I introduce it, and this is how I get them into it. I say it's not a love story. It's a story about a bunch of young Italians in the hottest days of the summer who have nothing to do, and all they want to be doing is either one of two things or both, and that is fighting, and another word that starts with F, ends with ing. You can fill in the blank.
Fill in the blank. Yeah. I mean, I think that the podcast as a whole does have that explicit E rating on it. So,
no, but I don't, but
that's what you say to your students.
No, that's my line. That's my pitch.
All right. And Dan, I'm glad that you kind of pitched your thesis for our audience here. And I guess that's on me for asking, like I said, somebody with a background in theater and who's also a high school English teacher, where they stand with William Shakespeare. You're going to go 12 minutes with, the full explanation of, what your thoughts are on pretty much, the sum of his works. But Dan, there's one thing that I want to talk about that you did not bring up. And that's how, when, I don't know, you're probably in your early 20s, put on a production of an unofficial sequel to Hamlet, not to be confused with the Steve Coogan movie Hamlet 2, but a different Hamlet 2.
No, yes, Hamlet 2, Better Than the Original by Sam Bobrick, also known as the creator or co-creator of Saved by the Bell.
Right.
It's a very Mel Brooks inspired Hamlet, and yeah, I was not even 20 yet.
Oh, were you still just 19.
I was 19 going on 20. And I remember, I honestly, I don't remember like how or why I bought that script. It would have been on like a trip to the drama bookstore, I'm sure.
Hmm.
And I remember just like, it was one of those scripts that I read and I was like, I know exactly how I would do this.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. And it was
Yep.
fun and goofy and a fun entry level to Hamlet if you are not familiar with it and have more of the sensibilities to
Well,
something that's more Mel Brooksy. Maybe too Mel Brooksy that for something that isn't Mel Brooks.
No. Yeah, no, it's extremely Mel Brooksy. It's too Mel Brooksy. But also, and this play feeds into even though I did not have anyone as a like prep school student or high school basketball player, part of the gimmick was because especially also in this is also giving us some context here in throughout like the 90s there was definitely an era of more of these like Shakespeare productions that took plays in and put them in different settings. Like Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet seemed more like a czarist Russia than Denmark.
Yeah, which I was actually hoping to watch, but I did not have the opportunity in this past week. I instead watched a lot of Josh Hartnett movies. I also watched 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yeah.
Just kind of getting myself more in the, Shakespeare adaptation of the late 90s, early 2000s.
But it was definitely
that whole vibe.
It was definitely a thing, and that was kind of my gimmick. Was every character was like from a different era. I think maybe not every character, because I ended up playing Claudius in it, and me and Gertrude were both like 70s. We were like,
oh, okay,
yeah, disco.
This was
king and queen.
1996.
97.
This was 97. Okay,
yes, but before my birthday, so I was still
sure.
19.
I was trying to remember because you gave me the honor of doing the lights for the show.
That's
which
right.
I think was just a series of like 4 different switches and figuring out which one to do at which time. But I was just trying to remember, was I 13 or 14? So I guess I must have been 14 at that time.
You would have been 14, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a good time, and we had everybody, each character, with that different gimmick. And,
a lot of fun. And then when the Steve Coogan Hamlet 2 came out, it was just like a different Hamlet 2. How interesting.
Right. Totally different.
Which is also a lot of fun.
I really enjoyed the Steve Coogan Hamlet 2.
I mean, Steve Coogan's so good in it.
Yeah. It's really, if you haven't seen it, check it out. Totally worth the watch.
Yeah, a lot of fun. But yeah, we're talking Othello / O on this episode. Dan, was this your first time seeing O?
It was.
Me too.
You too.
What did you think?
I really liked it. What did you think?
It was fun.
Yeah. I was really impressed with it. And just thought, like, man, this should have been, I feel like it should have been bigger. I know it was released like a week and a half before 9/11.
I think like August 31st.
Yeah.
Something like that. I wrote it down in my notes. Because I was curious. I was just like, we've got a 2000... it was August 31st. I was like, we got a 2001 movie. How close was this to 9/11? It was very close.
I mean, yeah. I think like, didn't also Rockstar come out?
Rockstar came out, I think, on 9/11.
On 9/11. Gee. Rockstar was what the country needed, though.
No kidding.
Though, and also caveat here, because I went on and nerded out about Shakespeare. I've never read Othello.
Oh, really?
I've never seen Othello. I am just unfamiliar with Othello. I know like the main characters, but I'm not really. I'm definitely interested. I'm more intrigued now. Like I was intrigued and interested, but it just wasn't one of those that.
Well, yeah. Well, Dan,
was on my radar, but now it is.
You know, we rarely communicate with each other about the movies before we record. I texted
Yeah.
you last night because I was trying to watch the Orson Welles Othello from
Oh,
like 1951. Oh boy, I had to turn it off like shortly after I texted you. It was just like hard to watch. First of all, Orson Welles blackface, not a good look.
No.
But aside from that, it's put together in such a confusing way,
Mm.
and everybody in it is just so over the top. It's really bananas. And I'm talking about, you know, a plot line that I just saw in O, which is
Right.
about, which is also very over the top. I mean, I think that's, you just kind of have to expect that to happen with some of these Shakespeare adaptations.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the other thing that you have to remember is that when these were originally done, they were done in a theater that had there were no mics, no sound equipment,
Yeah,
and like a lot of rowdy drunk people.
sure. Absolutely.
So yeah, that's why Shakespeare is sometimes like repetitive and
Yeah.
things are really, done. It's big.
Yeah.
But
Well, you
yeah.
know, okay, so we have O, directed by great actor Tim Blake Nelson, who we
Like
love,
Nelson, man,
who's
what an artist.
fantastic and not, you know, when it comes to being a director, not very prolific, but I'd say best known for his work with the Coen brothers, and
Yeah.
you know, he always pops up and stuff, and it's
Yeah,
great to
just
see him.
one of those character actors, like he in Minority Report.
Yep.
He pops up in that. And there's a lot of things.
He's got a great look.
I think he's in one of the new like comic book movies.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but Tim Blake Nelson, and now John, have you seen any of his other films?
No. Have you?
Yes. And I think he's only made maybe like 3 or 4 features,
Right.
but he did make a film called The Gray Zone, set in a concentration camp during the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a really interesting cast. Like,
Okay.
I think David Arquette was in it, Steve Buscemi, and this was like maybe 2002.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was based on a play. It was adapted from a play that he had written.
Oh,
But
cool.
like, I think Harvey Keitel, Mira Sorvino, Natasha Lyonne. I mean, I haven't seen it since I saw it in the theater, but part of the reason was just because, I mean, as with most films about the Holocaust, very like hard to watch,
Yeah. Well,
or hard to watch again, hard to go
Yeah.
back to.
hard to go back to. I'd say that if you know, Holocaust movies that I would go back to are probably ones like Inglorious Bastards, which is I
Oh,
wouldn't say
well,
a straightforward Holocaust movie. That was
I mean, the Jews
Mostly
do
a-
the killing in that one.
that was mostly a joke there, but
Yeah.
I feel like I could see myself watching Zone of Interest again, just
Zone of
because that
Interest.
one really knocks you on your ass. Also, and granted, this is not a straightforward Holocaust movie, nor does it take place in concentration camps, but Jojo Rabbit is
Yeah.
one that I've watched a few times, and I think that it's because it's just like easier to access those, and it's not necessarily about the large overarching Holocaust as a whole, and more personal stories.
Right.
And
You know,
I feel like Zone of Interest just like knocks you on your ass, and you're just like, oh,
well,
I
and
need
it's
to
also
I need to feel that again.
it's also something that you can watch, and this is also where Schindler's List falls for me. It's something that you can also watch, and you can kind of like decide to watch it from a technical standpoint, or
Yeah.
like studying the director's moves. I would say especially Zone of Interest,
Mm-hmm.
and analyzing especially the use of sound. Like Zone of Interest is a film that I'm sorry I didn't see it in a theater.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm also glad I didn't see it in the theater for
Sure, yeah.
the same reasons. Schindler's List is one that I've actually I think I might have like 5 or 6 Schindler's List viewings under my belt.
Oh, okay.
Well, and it just happened to be because, all right, in the theater, New Year's Day, January 1st, 1994.
Okay.
Uh,
Happy anniversary.
so yeah,
Happy 31st anniversary.
I guess of me seeing Schindler's List.
Yeah.
So, and then I remember we watched it. I was I was like chosen from our high school to go to the Holocaust Museum in DC. It was something like, the senator from New Jersey was hosting, and it was like when the Holocaust Museum was just opened. So, and then they
And he was
we
like,
watched
hey,
Schindler's-
don't forget about it.
we watched Schindler's List on the bus.
Come on, Dan.
What?
Oh, you watched Schindler's List on the bus? Interesting.
Yeah.
Weird bus movie.
We watched it. Well, I don't know, to get us in the mood. It wasn't like an overnight trip.
Yeah, it's just like, all right, everyone get real bummed out on the way to getting even more bummed out.
It's like, it takes about 3 hours and 20 minutes to get to DC, right? From Jersey. All right.
Yeah,
So-
I guess if you're going to put a movie on when you're on a bus ride, you have to be very careful because especially if you're going to the Holocaust Museum, you don't want it to be too fun and plucky.
Right. No, like Encino Man wasn't an option, even though I probably on the way back, that would have been one that would have been a good one to pop in there. I don't know why Encino Man popped into my head.
I don't know, but now you got me thinking of Brendan Fraser and I'm like, School Ties? No.
Oh, wow. Yeah, true. School Ties.
That at
But-
least would have been more appropriate, more in line.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. No. If I was the decision maker, things would have been done differently. They were cowards.
They were cowards.
Cowards. But anyway, yeah. So I don't know how Tim Blake Nelson. Right?
Tim Blake Nelson.
So Tim Blake Nelson.
Yeah.
And I like his script for this, and not knowing Othello, there were so many points where I was just like, that is so Shakespearean.
Yeah.
Where it's like, what's happening? Even some of like the looks or something like that. It's like, oh, that's almost definitely how it happens in the play.
Well, Dan, why don't you give us a little synopsis of O, and then we'll get really into it.
All right, let's do this. Simply put, Hugo isn't happy. Why? He always plays second or even third fiddle to his peers on his prep school basketball team. The biggest issue for Hugo is that his dad, the team's coach, favors the new kid in school, basketball hotshot Odin James. But even if he isn't the best basketball player, Hugo is a master manipulator. Using everyone around him, Hugo decides to orchestrate chaos that would put Odin in prison and so many others 6 feet under. As Odin, we have Mekhi Phifer.
Mm-hmm.
As Hugo, we have Josh Hartnett.
Mm-hmm.
As Desi, Odin's girlfriend and the daughter of the dean, played by the aforementioned John Hurd.
Sure.
We have Julia Stiles there
Mhm.
as Desi. We've got Rain Phoenix, sister of River and Joaquin, famously, playing Emily, Desi's roommate.
We just saw Summer Phoenix in something recently, right?
I
think we just saw Summer Phoenix in something recently.
We probably did.
We're covering our Phoenix bases here.
Yep, we're going all the way. The next one though, we're no Phoenix.
Mm.
Oh, what?
You'll see.
Wait,
You'll see.
wait.
You'll see.
Okay, all right, stop.
Not in the
Okay.
way that you think. Not in the way that you think.
No.
but you'll see.
No. Yes. Okay. So getting back to it. And then so we've Martin Sheen as the coach.
As the coach, Hugo's dad.
Yeah.
We also have Eldon Henson as is his name Roger?
Roger.
Yeah, who's Hugo's roommate, who is infatuated with Desi, and Hugo is claiming that he's going to be able to get Roger closer to her. I don't, his motives are, only he knows what his motives
Well,
are.
right. Yeah, and that's it. It kind of like that's at the beginning. That's kind of where it all starts.
Yeah, and then but for Roger, who is very wealthy, his father has given a lot of money to the school, so he's basically untouchable. So Hugo essentially uses him because he knows that Roger won't get into any trouble, whereas anybody else probably would.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and we also have Andrew Keegan.
Andrew Keegan, thank
Yeah.
you. As
Andrew
Michael.
Keegan, my favorite cult leader. I think it's been disputed of whether or not it's a cult, but I know that they had a whole kerfuffle years ago because they were making kombucha, and it was like they were getting in trouble for the way that they were making this kombucha. It's a real thing.
Andrew Keegan?
Andrew Keegan.
Oh, I'll look it up.
I'm gonna look it up right now because Andrew Keegan cult. Okay, so this is just from February in Variety. Andrew Keegan, on rumors that he's a cult leader, runs a cult, admits he spent tens of thousands of dollars on spiritual group. And there was a whole Keegan sued Examiner and its parent company, blah, 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 for defamation in 2015 after a story claimed he was arrested for selling alcoholic kombucha without a permit. He claimed he wasn't at Full Circle, that's what it was called, at the time. The case was dismissed. So yeah, I'm not wrong. It sounds like a Mad Libs Hollywood thing.
But I don't like, I didn't doubt it whatsoever. And Andrew Keegan, by the way, who is also in 10 Things I Hate About You.
Is he also in the Hamlet that Julia Stiles is in?
The Ethan Hawke Hamlet?
Is he?
I saw that in the theater. I liked it.
Let me see. Andrew Keegan, IMDb. What do we got? Clearly we know what he's known for.
Yeah. Bill Murray is in the Ethan Hawke Hamlet as Polonius.
I have to go to see all because he's been in so much stuff.
I mean, aside from a cult.
Yes, he's been in that cult.
Not just in the cult, he's the leader.
You know what? Maybe he was not in that Hamlet. What year was that? He was in something called a Midsummer Night's Rave. So,
oh, of course he was. He's one of those actors who feels like he, existed at that time. And like,
this is so funny. Yeah. William Shakespeare's classic tale of love and mischief, A Midsummer Night's Dream, is reimagined with club kids at a rave in an LA warehouse. Love potions and drug deals gone bad. It's a high energy drug fueled drama. And it's Andrew Keegan, Sonny Mabry. I'm looking for some other, people in time. Chris Owen, who we've talked about before. I forget what he was in that we had talked about, but he's in American Pie. Oh, he's in Major Payne. He's the goofy-eared kid.
Oh, yes.
So anyway, it was that era where he was in everything. So
and every Shakespeare adaptation, apparently, except for the Hamlet.
Wait, was he in... Oh?
Andrew Keegan?
Oh, no. I was talking about the kid from Major Payne.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, talking about Andrew Keegan.
Andrew Keegan, for sure. Shakespeare adaptation, modernized 90s, early 2000s royalty. I really enjoyed it. And I feel like this came out at a time because I guess this came out after I had already graduated from high school, but some of his other stuff was, like The Faculty, 10 Things I Hate About You. Mm-hmm. Those were like while I was in high school, and their high school movies, but I feel like I didn't love Josh Hartnett. There was something about him where I was just like, I don't know about this guy. And even though he's been very active this entire time, having a few more high profile roles recently in Oppenheimer and then The Trap, even though The Trap I didn't think was very good, he is very good in it, I would say.
And it got a good amount of attention.
Yeah, and he was really good, and he was really great in Oppenheimer. I thought that he was fantastic. And going back and watching those movies, I got it. I understood the whole Josh Hartnett thing. And I just, at the time, wasn't for me. But looking back at it, it's just like, man, what a specific era. There's that like combed down hair in the front, but spiked up in the back.
Yeah.
Look that like only he could pull off. And I also watched 40 Days and 40 Nights, which was also like better than I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
It's not great, but it was better than I thought it was.
It's like
going
he gives
to be.
up sex for Lent.
Exactly.
That was I remember
Exactly.
the trailers for that. But I felt the same way as you, and I feel like Josh Hartnett was marketed very specifically, and I guess like heterosexual males were not part of the demographic being targeted.
Right. But I
The way you
appreciate him as an actor in a lot of these movies from his early career. And I understood the the draw of his name on a marquee, and he does things differently than anybody else, I think, especially at that time.
you see that in O so clearly. I
Yeah.
have that really throughout the film, was thinking that like, wow, like really impressed with him, and again thinking like, okay, what else, what did I sleep on of his? And I liked The Faculty. I don't know
I
that
watched it today.
I
It's
don't know
great.
that it's a great movie. Love The Faculty.
It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And now you are the faculty.
I know. Wow, that would be so weird if that happened.
That would be so weird if that happened. What a good Letterboxd review.
Wouldn't that be crazy?
That could work for any movie. That'd be so weird if that happened.
Well, not for any movie, John.
Not for the Holocaust movies we talked about.
Yeah.
To be frank, we know that did happen. Not even weird. Just bad.
No.
We're firm on that statement.
No, with that, it would be terrible if that were to ever happen again on that scale, because.
But like Encino Man.
Yes.
That would be weird if that happened.
That would be weird if that happened. Yes. Lovely. I love
I think
it.
I'm just gonna go. I think that anytime I'm like ranking something or like logging something on Letterboxd, as long as it's not a nonfiction movie, I'm gonna write. That would be weird if that happened.
If you don't know what else to say,
If I don't have anything else to say, I don't say anything at all.
I think we've got our first new T-shirt design.
That would be weird if that happened.
That'd be weird if that happened. I don't know what graphic you put with that.
You don't need a graphic. It can just be words.
That'd be weird if that happened.
That would be weird if that happened.
But yeah, anyway, Josh, so Josh Hartnett, a lot of respect, especially like his work in this movie, I think really stands out.
He does a lot of real heavy lifting here.
Okay, so if I could bring up, while we're on the topic, a really specific scene it's a simple scene but really powerful, and what I liked about this movie was that it gives you moments where you find yourself sympathizing with the least sympathetic characters.
Mm-hmm.
Roger,
probably
the least sympathetic. There's that scene where he's sitting in the bleachers at the basketball game, and Michael and the other kid are bullying him and like flicking his ears and everything. He's just sitting there staring straight ahead, but he's like ready to break. And you're like, oh man, like, yeah, no, I get why this kid is so messed up.
And you also get why this movie wasn't released when it was supposed to be released, but was put off because of Columbine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was that
alleged? I mean, according to
it was originally
IMDb
supposed to come
trivia.
out in 99.
Yeah. But because of the events at Columbine, they were just like, oh, yeah, killing students at a high school. Maybe we're going to put this one on the shelf for a bit longer.
Certainly makes a lot of sense.
And then they put it out, and then 9/11 happened.
Anyway, just moving on from that. It's that scene, and then there's the scene when Hugo gets invited to come have dinner in his dad's office.
Oh yeah.
And his dad kind of just like talks to him, and I'm looking. Oh yeah, I don't remember what he was talking to him about, but he pretty much then just leaves him sitting there.
Yeah, he's like, you can stay here and finish your food. And he's like sitting on the floor. It's
and it's
sad.
like he makes that point when he comes in. He's like, I don't remember the last time you invited me, and you're like, he's looking for this connection with his dad,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you finally think, okay, maybe there's something here, but no, then he just gets up, and isn't it about Odin? Isn't he talking to him about Odin?
Yeah. And also, at the very beginning of the movie, you know, it starts with the basketball game, and then there's a moment after the game where the coach is basically saying, like, MVP of the game, Odin James, he's like a son to me. And you just see Hugo's face just drop. And then, you know, and then Odin is just like, and I couldn't have done this without, and like, he thinks it's going to be him, but then it's like Andrew Keegan's character. And
Yeah.
it's just like, oh man, this guy is, this is just so shitty for him. And not that what he does is okay, but like you can see how he is like turned into a villain
Well,
the entire time.
And I wrote down, he says, and I'm sorry if this is, if you already said this exactly, but he says, I love him like my own son.
Yeah, that's essentially what it's.
And then,
quote, yeah.
But I mean, just in those words, and then when you see the way that like the love that he shows to his own son,
Right.
and you're like, oh wow, so if Hugo sees that and then he's like, no, you love him more than you love your own son.
You know, if he could have said he's the son I never had, he would have. That's essentially the vibe of it.
Yikes. Yeah.
But yeah, the entire time you really feel like, okay, I'm understanding why Hugo is the way that he is. But the way that he manipulates people is diabolical.
Yes.
Just like so masterful. Not having read Othello and Hugo is based on the character Iago. Not knowing exactly what goes down, and maybe had I continued watching the Orson Welles Othello, I would have gotten a little bit more. It was just impossible to watch.
I need to find the Kenneth Branagh, Lawrence Fishburne Othello.
Yeah, that one's not available to stream or anything.
Yeah.
So, or else I definitely would have watched it. And there is a new Othello, Denzel Washington Othello, coming out, I think in 2025.
Oh, nice. Oh, okay.
Not to, talk too much, get ahead of ourselves, I guess.
Well, no, that's yeah.
I think,
I feel like
you know
Denzel's
what?
a little old for
So I know that they were doing it on Broadway. So, I think that maybe they're doing an adaptation of the stage performance. It's Jake Gyllenhaal and Denzel Washington.
Oh, okay.
I thought I saw that on.
Wow, Jake Gyllenhaal as Iago. Yeah, that I would love to see Denzel Washington on stage. He's so phenomenal.
He's great.
I mean, you mentioned The Great Debaters in the introduction. That's a movie that I don't feel like enough people have seen. And it's it's really inspiring. It's a great picture and really interesting because there's an actor in it named Denzel Whitaker, who is neither related to Denzel Washington nor Forrest Whitaker, who plays his father.
Is he not related to Forrest Whitaker?
No, I mean, I could hold on. Let me double check this, but I'm pretty sure that, like, because I've also shown that movie in class.
And by the way, I may have misspoken. Maybe this Denzel Washington Othello is not being adapted to screen, because now that I'm looking, I'm not seeing it. But I thought that I saw it when I was like looking for, different adaptations of Othello to watch. But that is to say, there's a stage version with Denzel and Jake Gyllenhaal. I don't know if it's still currently running.
Right. Yeah. And no, Denzel Whitaker is not related to either, even though he not only so I was just reminded by the internet that he not only played Forrest Whitaker's son in The Great Debaters, he played the younger version of Forrest Whitaker in Black Panther.
Okay. So that's what I thought, and I just assumed that they were in some way related.
I know, right?
Well, there you go.
I know that would be weird if that happened.
That would be weird if that happened. So, I do mention Denzel Whitaker in the intro just because as I was going through the cast list, I was just like, Denzel Washington, Forrest Whitaker, Denzel Whitaker. Okay.
Yeah, I know. It's fascinating. It's weird. Great movie. But yeah, coming back to O here.
Maybe it's kind of like the Brundlefly version of like Forrest Whitaker and Denzel Washington going into like the fly machine. Except it just makes a duplicate copy of both of them together.
Damn, that's a remake of The Fly I would watch. We're not supposed to be talking about remakes of The Fly. This is not the Fly episode.
No,
we can't do that until we
F.
zip back up to F.
Yeah, which for anybody who is maybe a new listener on this season, we are going A to Z and then Z to A with our film titles. So O is our O episode, going up the alphabet. So I couldn't pass up the opportunity to just cover a movie that is just singularly the letter of the alphabet that we're talking about.
When it's right there for you, why not? And in case we don't end up doing Z for Z, it's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay.
So, all right, let's talk a little bit about Julia Stiles.
Yeah,
as Desi. What are your thoughts on Julia Stiles?
I really like Julia Stiles.
Me too.
I really and I mean, I feel like this role is so this is the interesting part to taking characters that are, even though like Desdemona is probably in her 20s in Othello.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Like she's probably 10 years older, but like there's a lot of elements of the character that I feel like might have been a little restrictive in this, and like things that in the original maybe wouldn't have been as restrictive about the character, but still like she's great. I think she's maybe the only like fully genuine character in the whole story who's not either. I mean, yeah, Odin, but like she's, everything that she says throughout is true.
Okay.
She doesn't lie, and it's very, I think it's important that that she's played that way so that it makes everyone else look worse.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're saying it's her performance makes everyone look worse?
No. I mean the character. I think that the way that the character,
person.
Right? I feel so like it's not as like her character in 10 Things I Hate About You. She really gets to like show out in that.
Mm-hmm.
Julia Stiles. I think in this she's got to be more reserved, and I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the character. And it's interesting to say because there's definitely parts of this movie where this character is not reserved, but this is a very straightforward character. She's truthful about what she wants.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a bit naive, but yeah, I mean, Julia Stiles, fantastic. I think, yeah.
Yeah, she's great. I always love seeing her pop up in things, nowadays, or going throughout her career in the Bourne movies.
I was like, great. I don't think I've seen her in anything since the Bourne movies.
Silver Linings Playbook was, I guess, during the Bourne movies era.
Yeah.
Still, that was quite a long time ago.
But I forgot she was in that.
But I mean, she's not one of them. She's Jennifer Lawrence's sister, I think.
Yeah.
And so, in this era, like when she's doing and in the late 90s, and 10 Things I Hate About You, she's so good in 10 Things I Hate About You. If it were anybody else, that movie would just be like 15% worse. Like she just elevates it and makes it so much better. And I got to say, 10 Things I Hate About You and they share this one quality that I love seeing, especially in these like late 90s, we'll say, adaptations of like modernized Shakespeare things, where there's like the cool English teacher who's teaching them about William Shakespeare.
Oh, right.
And like, you know,
Right.
Like does it as like a rap or something. It's just like, this Shakespeare guy's pretty cool, huh? And it's like, I'd love to know if that has ever been something that you've attempted as somebody who teaches Shakespeare.
And I'll be to the point here. I've definitely shown the TED Talk about Shakespeare, like Shakespeare and hip hop, and you know, it's like a DJ or an MC who takes Shakespeare's rhythms and puts them to beats.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've done that, and there's a wonderful, I think now, I don't, maybe now it's a Reddit, but pop sonnets.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Yeah, like top 40 hits rewritten as Shakespearean sonnets. And that's always fun when I introduce Shakespeare. It's like, okay, let's see if you can guess what this is. Of course, like, I don't think there's been a new one since like Taylor Swift released the 1989 album.
Got it.
So they're all like kind of old, but I can generally, like, there's one for Bohemian Rhapsody. So I do that one. And then I close it off with one that's it's Never Gonna Give You Up.
Okay. We're right now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna task ChatGPT with doing one of these.
Oh, okay.
So I couldn't name you too many modern songs that I feel like would be, I know modern songs, but not necessarily like big pop songs. But
right.
Let's see. Translate the lyrics of what's a good song that's I don't know. We could do like a Chapel Roan song. Hot to Go. Yeah, let's do Hot to Go.
Yes, let's.
Translate the lyrics of Hot to Go by Chapel Roan in the style of a Shakespeare sonnet.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I can read this.
Oh, really?
When the fire in thy breast doth fiercely burn, and passions wild like stormy waves doth rise, but I am but a spark, to thee I turn, for thine own flames reflect within mine eyes. A heart unchained with reckless joy it flies, yet still I yearn for what I cannot keep. In thee a tempest doth my soul surprise, for thou art mine, and I am thine to weep. Yet hot to go and fleeting in thy grace, thou dost not stay, though pleasure makes it mark, a fleeting kiss, a touch, a swift embrace, then all doth fade as shadows lost in dark. So in this heat I burn and long to stay, but know, sweet love, that thou must drift away. HOTTOGO. I don't know, I'm just adding that part because it doesn't have the fun hook. But certainly, it says, this translation keeps the essence of longing and fleeting desire while giving it a Shakespearean touch with metaphor, rhythm, and a bit of that wistful, unattainable love that often surfaces in the bard's works. Thank you, ChatGPT.
Yeah, I guess, you know, with stuff like ChatGPT now, it's kind of, it's less, I don't want to say less impressive, but
it is. It takes the skill out of it. You know, for those ones that you're talking about, somebody did put a lot of work into it.
I mean, I feel like that's the fun of it. It's like, I don't care how a robot did it, but
no, it is fun though to understand the ability of this engine to create something in the style. I mean,
yeah,
you know, Shakespearean sonnets. It's just like, I don't know, the prototype for so much of, you know, poetry.
It's already got rhythm,
writing.
A rhyme scheme. Yeah. So, but yeah, I do rap the entire plot of Mice and Men, but I have not done any rap with Romeo.
You know, John Steinbeck is pretty cool dude, huh? Some would even say that he's the original, I don't know, MC, JS or MC, I don't know. I'm trying to come up with the cool guy English teacher vibe.
I don't know. I don't know that I have it. I'm more the exasperated, sarcastic English teacher.
I like that you don't do it for Shakespeare, but you do it for Steinbeck. That's pretty funny.
Oh yeah, well, I don't know. It worked out really well. Maybe we'll do an Of Mice and Men episode one day, and I'll do it. But
Maybe on the way back.
it's not a.
It doesn't
let's
work.
Face it. It doesn't work. I mean, it has more M's than O's. But
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Speaking of O,
Yeah, and so the way that this movie essentially culminates, which we won't necessarily get into because maybe this is one that you haven't seen. Perhaps you were going to see it and then 9/11 happened and you were just like, well, I guess I'm never going to see O. And your chance has come up again. It's on Hoopla. If you have a library card, you can check it out there. It's a surprisingly good movie.
and I will say though, like for anyone who's thinking like, oh, okay, it's a high school, like that it's kind of it departs from while you could put it in that same subgenre as something like 10 Things I Hate About You, there's of course a racial aspect to the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Odin is black.
Yeah.
Odin is the only black player at the team. Odin, I think, is the only black student at the school.
Which they comment on, yeah.
Yeah. And they're Tim Blake Nelson doesn't, and this is where I'm also curious to read the original, is to see how much reference, like I know they refer to him, to Othello, as the Moor.
Right, yeah.
But I'm curious because there's a lot of reference to that, even in Desi and O's like sex talk.
Their pillow talk,
their pillow. It's
which is essentially him using the N-word and saying I can use it, but you can't use it, and then her essentially being like, well, why not? Which is kind of weird.
Well, yeah. Well, there's all that. Yeah, there's a lot of that. There's the whole thing that he says that she quotes him on about like playing Big House, that like old, like the stable buck is running around the big house or something like that. Like that was crazy. And then there's also some other scenes. I do think Tim Blake Nelson is being really intentional about this, and I do feel he does have a sensitivity to discrimination, and we see it like, because even like when Roger is getting bullied, but like there's even shots, there's scenes like when they're doing the Southeast Regional slam dunk tournament, and like,
which is from the original play, by the way.
Oh yeah, of course, along with all the cocaine.
Yeah.
But there's a shot and it's all these players and they're all black.
Yeah.
And they're stretching on the gym floor in front of an audience. And the next shot is of like the judges' table, which has a banner on it that includes the Confederate flag.
Right.
And it's like, I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's just, maybe like in 2001, it like people weren't as sensitive to that, but I think he knew what he was doing here.
I think he knew what he was doing. If anything, there were likely, attempts made to get him to like pull back a little bit. Because I feel like Hollywood wasn't being called out as much at that time. And so it was like, well, let's not, stoke the flames. Let's, just make a movie that high school kids can go to and watch these heartthrobs in. And that's the point. And
yes, he did. But it's a lot more, much more sexual.
Mm-hmm.
And not that like Shakespeare's work isn't sexual, but a lot of these adaptations aren't as overtly sexual. And it doesn't pull any punches when it comes to the racial matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also want to mention one thing that I felt was like, I feel like this must be part of the original text, and it's like it feels weird for these high school kids to be doing this, and that's the whole plot line with the scarf. There's a
Yeah.
scarf that Odin gives to Desi, and it's like, this was my grandmother's scarf, and my, it's gotten down in my family, and they wanted somebody special to whatever, and that is used to essentially have Andrew Keegan's character have it and give it to, and it's like this whole thing of like, oh well, that's how we know that Andrew Keegan and Desi are getting close together, and it's all part of Hugo's plan. But it's like, I don't know, like a like silky scarf that doesn't feel very appropriate. It doesn't seem like something that like high school kids would be jazzed about. It's like this old lady scarf. And so I felt like, couldn't you have done that with like jewelry, or like, I don't know, there could have been
No.
something that felt more authentic to
I-
kids at that time.
Okay. I mean, maybe I don't know. To me, I mean, yes, it also was something that felt very much right from Shakespeare,
Yeah.
but I feel like the emotional and like showing that they had this special relationship, and the fact that it wasn't just something that
Oh, no. I
was
still feel like it could be some sort of like, this was my mother's and my grandmother's, but like the fact that it was like a silky scarf. It was a very like old lady scarf.
that shit's in. Well, I guess it's in now. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
not in 2001 or 99, whenever they made this.
Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't feel
No,
realistic to me.
No,
for,
and
for that time.
that, and the whole plan is relying on a lot of things happening at like just the right time.
Sure.
That is also very much Shakespeare.
Yeah.
It's very much like the domino effect of things just going wrong.
Yeah.
I thought the scene, and that was also a scene where Emily, like when Emily kind of gives Hugo,
Emily, who is Desi's roommate.
Yes, Desi's roommate and Hugo's girlfriend.
Michael's girlfriend.
No, Emily is Hugo's girlfriend.
No. Okay, we're talking about Rain Phoenix.
Yeah.
Rain Phoenix isn't Hugo's girlfriend. He uses her to get the scarf, but they are not like an item.
Yeah, they are.
I saw it because when she gives him the scarf that she takes from Desi, he then kisses her, and she's basically like, this is what it takes to get your attention, or like,
no. This but prior to that, Hugo refers to her as his girl.
Oh, does he? I did not clock that.
He
at
says
all.
like something like when they all meet up, and like like I think she gives like Michael a kiss on the cheek, and he goes, he says something like, oh, everyone else gets more kisses from my girl than I do.
I did not even notice that.
Oh yeah, no. They're an item, but the thing is, it's more like he's not interested in her beyond whatever she could do
right.
for him.
However, she can be useful for his schemes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that's where that whole thing comes out, where when she gives him the scarf and he's like, let's have sex right now. And that's why she's like, oh, so this is what it takes, not just to get his attention, but to kind of hold his attention.
Oh, my read was that like, she had a thing for him, and he used that to be able to get this, but not that they had a previous relationship. But if there was just a line that I missed where he does say that, then there you go. Dan, we are already well over an hour. I got to ask you, Dan, if you had an opportunity to do something with O, what would you do?
I think I would like remake it. I don't know that I would. I mean, I should say this. All right. So if we're talking about O specifically, I don't know that I would, but I feel like there's got to be something, a way to like redo it, like to do this again, to kind of do this experiment again.
Yeah.
For the contemporary audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, yeah, that means it's probably like on Netflix, but like this movie didn't get seen, whether it was 9/11, whether it was bad publicity. I don't think it necessarily got like a wide release, or maybe they were planning on going with a wide release. Who knows? I remember being aware of it, but I don't remember it was like it being at like the multiplexes. I don't think it was an option the day I went to see Rockstar.
Which came out September 4th, 2001.
All right. Well, yeah. So I would love to like maybe see a new adaptation of it and like set in a high school, maybe also around basketball. Maybe it would kind of be shitty to not have Tim Blake Nelson involved.
Yeah,
So
he could be the coach, or he could be Desi's dad, who's like the dean of the school.
Well, or would he want to remake his own movie?
Yeah, I don't know. So I'm just gonna say, I agree that like I feel like this could be done well again, contemporary audience. However, I don't know if I would want it to be high school. Or at least not set so much in the school. And that just is for, school violence, shootings and things like that. Like that doesn't feel like it's a comfortable moment. Granted, not the comfortable movie, but also it's like, there are so many other settings. Like this could take place over summer break. Well, kids are still in high school, and it's more about just like the friend group, or maybe it's like a summer camp or something.
Summer camp, yes.
There hasn't been a summer camp movie in a real long time.
But when has there been a Shakespeare-based summer camp movie that's not like a comedy?
That's a really good question.
Why can't you have all that like romance and intrigue and all that stuff? We know that goes on at the summer camps with, with the staff. We know they have sex. That's how Jason Voorhees died. They were making love. Yeah.
All right. So yeah,
I
think that's the move. Summer camp styles. It's with the camp counselors. They're
summer
all
camp styles, like Julia Stiles.
Dan. Anyway. That would be weird if that happened, is all I gotta say.
That would be weird if that happened. Definitely. No, Othello at a summer. Would you set it like modern day? I feel like diversity, though. It has to be.
Well, it can't be like a Wet Hot American Summer style summer camp where it's like a Jewish summer camp and something like that. Like it has to be maybe like it is a sports centric camp. And I don't know. I guess it could be a situation where there aren't very many black kids there, or maybe in this particular age range, there really just is like the one, just to be a little bit more true to the original text. Although I don't know how explicit that is about being like, oh, he's the only one around. And that's,
it's pretty. Yeah, it's
okay.
I know I haven't read it, but
okay. But your understanding is that it's that.
Yeah, and honestly, it's like that's when you're setting, especially if it's contemporary, setting it in that like Southern prep school.
Yeah,
did make sense. Not that that's the only option, but I do think you got to keep it. You got to keep it young. I think having them as teens works. Like, yeah, you could do a college set adaptation, but that's not that's the appeal here is that you're saying like, yeah, this is a story with a few, adjustments could happen with teenagers.
Well, another thing that's an interesting element of a teenager story, especially if it's being set in contemporary times. And what Ode also does is it plants these seeds. You know, Odin is being scouted by colleges at this time. And so all of these like high school romance things, it's like, you know, let's be real. There's kind of an expiration date on these relationships. So how serious do things need to be for these characters and the way that they pine for each other when, you know, give it a couple months, because it's like they just started seeing each other. This guy's probably going to go off someplace very different from where she's going off to.
Yeah, but you know, it especially like at that age and everything, it's all like when it's magic, when it's clicking, it's like, it's going to be forever.
Well, what's also fun about doing it at a summer camp is that there is that built-in expiration date where it's like camp ends at this time. And, you know, going back to Wet Hot American Summer, there's like a bit where Michael Showalter is basically saying like, you know, would you be my girlfriend for the summer, or, you know, something like that. And it's like, oh, this is just temporary. And it's kind of like, there's an understanding. And then there's the thing of just like, oh, well, we could see each other, you know, once a month, and, you know, we could do this and think of that. My mom can drive me to blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, okay. But we all know that, like, that's not going to happen.
Like, what if it was space camp?
No. Just trying to bring in Joaquin Phoenix.
We got to have the legacy, you know?
Yeah.
But no, I'm trying to think of ultra competitive where there's a lot on the line and there's, you know, potentially privilege involved. Just trying to think about those different possible settings where it could go.
Well, you know, Dan, when we did our space camp episode and we had on my friend Jenna to talk briefly about a real space camp experience, it's not like the movie Space Camp where it's like, you know, it's more just like, oh, you're there and you're doing science and then you go home. That's it.
You don't accidentally go into space?
You don't accidentally go into space.
With your robot friend?
Yeah. Although I guess that Hugo would be the jinx in this situation. Not like the Robert Durst jinx, but no. Actually more like the Robert Durst jinx.
Yeah, exactly like the Robert Durst jinx.
But Max and Robert Durst, the jinx, friends forever.
Max love Robert. Jinx love Robert Durst. Robert Durst love nobody.
Well, Dan, before we talk about what we're going to cover on our next episode, I want to thank everybody for tuning in, whether you're listening or whether you're watching on Spotify or YouTube. We appreciate it. Rate us, review us, do all the things, leave comments on the episodes. We love it when that happens. And we just really appreciate everybody who tunes in. Email us, ruinchildhoodspod@gmail.com. And let us know what your thoughts are about or any of the other movies that we've talked about. And yeah, Dan, we've gone A through O. What's our P episode?
Our P episode, we're doubling up on the P's here with Phantom of the Paradise from 1974, directed by Brian De Palma and starring Paul Williams. Amongst others.
Yes. And I just started watching it again before we recorded, and it's so good. It's so good. I can't wait to talk about it.
Yep. Yeah. Long time coming, this one. I feel like it was only a matter of time. So finally it happens on our next episode. We talk about Phantom of the Paradise.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen it before, check it out. It's, was it streaming on Prime?
It's streaming on Prime. Yeah.
Yeah. Or, you know, contact your library, get a DVD.
I haven't found it at my library, but
no.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe it's at yours. So all I got to say, Dan, is as you, a glass repairman on your way to fix the backboard at this prep school after Odin smashed it to smithereens, I wish you a good journey.
Good journey.